Hello, welcome to the Executive Program for Energy Leaders. It's exciting for us to be able to deliver this program to you because the energy industry is such a fascinating place. If you stop and think about it, energy is just different than kind of the consumer product space that most of us are familiar with. Energy is often seen as a right rather than a luxury. And all I have to do is think back to my own experience here in Texas in the winter of 2021. During a cold snap, we lost electricity for a number of days, and all of a sudden, energy wasn't a luxury anymore. It was a right, and the government got involved, and there was a lot of reaction to that. We're also facing generally commodity prices with regulated returns, so it's hard to generate high enough returns to cover the risk at times. There's huge upfront investments. There's long and risky paybacks. We also face the fairly unique challenge of tremendous public, non-governmental organization and regulatory interest in the very industry we're working in. We also have the uncertain future. We don't know what transition is going to look like. We don't know how fast it's going to occur, or where it's going to occur, where it's going to play a prominent role, where it's going to play a secondary role. And it's very hard to figure out your corporate strategy to make sound fiscal investments in those kinds of environments. Another challenge we have is that public aspirations often outpace the actual technical reality on the ground, and we have to manage those expectations in our industry. Ultimately, the question we want to answer is, how do we make financially sound investments in such a challenging and uncertain environment? The way I like to explain this to my friends and colleagues who aren't in the industry is to compare and contrast the difference between what happens if all of a sudden we didn't have enough cell phones in the world versus not having enough energy in the world. I like to joke that if there aren't enough cell phones in the world, you're going to have a bunch of unhappy nerds. But if you don't have enough energy in the world, you face famine, political unrest, water problems, and all of the attendant challenges associated with an unsettled, unfed, unhappy population. So it's a fascinating industry and one that we look forward to working with you on. Ultimately, we want participants in our program to leave with 5 items, 5 tools and techniques that they didn't have before. 1, we want to present a realistic framework for approaching energy investments in this uncertain world. 2, we want to give you some specific tools and techniques and ideas for making risky decisions. 3, we want to give you ideas on how to lead especially technical organizations through the changes that are inevitable in our industry. 4, we're going to present viable strategies for engaging with the myriad of important stakeholders, such as governments and partners and NGOs and the population, the general population as a whole. And finally, technology is going to play a very important role in transition and our ability to deliver this in the future. And these are the takeaways we hope to give you from this program. Diving into a little bit more detail on the program goals, we'd like to talk about insight-driven decision-making. How do you assess the energy landscape, and how does that impact the investment decisions you ought to be making? We have to focus on strategic implementation, because in this challenging environment, strategy is going to be in flux, and we've got to understand the trade-offs that come into play. Risk management is clearly going to be an important part of this environment, and we're going to have to explore ways of thinking about risk and ways of dealing with risk. We're also going to need to be able to lead change. It's change in our organizations, change in our own way of thinking, and even change in the industry if we're going to be successful in this new environment. This leads us to the idea of adaptable strategies. A fixed strategy simply isn't going to be able to cope with the uncertainties we're going to face over time. Finally, we have to keep in mind, as we're putting all of these complex pieces of a puzzle together, we've got to keep in mind the ethical leadership component, because there's going to be a lot of change, and there's going to be a lot of places where ethical decision-making is going to be necessary to lead us in the right path. The first phase of the program are the core modules. Everyone will be taking the core modules. The second phase is where you have elective modules where you can specialize in areas that you're interested in. I'd like to speak to you briefly about the core modules. There are 3 core modules in our program. The first core module is about understanding and navigating the uncertain energy landscape. This is going to provide background on what is the energy landscape, what are the different types of energy, what are the different energy needs, what are the trends looking like in the world today. And we will also put on top of that understanding how the market views energy companies. We'll be taking a look at valuation of energy companies, regulatory requirements on energy companies, and new business models that allow us to deal with this uncertain landscape. This is all contained in the first module, Navigating the Uncertain Energy Landscape. The second basic core section or module is around identifying, selecting, and evaluating new opportunities. One of the truisms of the energy space is we're constantly having to invest capital to deliver new energy sources to new places around the world. The foundation idea is to use decision quality to help us make good decisions in the face of a lot of uncertainty. We'll then dive a bit into risk and how to think about it. We're also going to take a look at capital projects and understand how they impact a firm's strategy and how to evaluate those uncertain environments and opportunities. Of course, opportunities are part of it, and all of the financial analysis is part of the question. But another part of the question is, how are we going to deal with the people that we have to deal with, the stakeholders, the key stakeholders? And this will include managing relationships with governments, with partners, with suppliers, with customers. Finally, the last module is around delivering the business plan. A great plan is a necessary condition, but you still have to be able to execute the plan. And delivering the business plan is going to have us focus on what is an appropriate strategy in this kind of environment? And how do you lead technical organizations and manage the change that's required within these organizations? We're also going to need to deal with the legal implications of working in the energy space, where customers and supplies are often widely spread geographically. And finally, technology has an important role to play. And we want to take a look at the new technology ideas that are coming ahead of us and see how those influence the outcome. I'd like to also tell you about some other features of the program. Throughout the core modules, you'll be able to engage with our faculty through live sessions. These sessions will allow you to expand your knowledge and gather additional insights from industry leaders in research and practice. You will also be asked to complete capstone project. The capstone project is going to allow you to apply the ideas that have been presented to an area of your choice. They're tailored to the particular phase you're in, and they're designed to help prepare you to tackle real problems in the real world using these ideas. Upon completion of the core modules, you'll then be able to select what elective modules you'd like to take so that you can tailor the program to your own needs. We think this is an exciting program. We're happy to be able to offer it to you, and we wish you the best of luck and enjoyment as you take these courses.